All right, I think we can get started. Hi everyone, welcome to our Traditional Paths to Research workshop. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Jessica and I'm part of the Cabinet branch of Spire. Tonight's workshop will be broken up into two parts. The first half will be a presentation on how to apply to research labs in general, and I'll be talking about my timeline and how to write professional emails and how to format a resume. The second half will be a student panel. We have 4 other Spire members here with us tonight who are in research labs, and they'll be answering any questions that you may have. If anyone has any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them in the chat and we'll get to them later on. And this meeting will be recorded, so you can watch this back on our YouTube channel. So why should I get involved in research as an undergrad? Research is a great way to apply what you learn in the classroom, and you really get the chance to put science into practice, whether it be biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, or psychology. For those of you who have taken the intro level general chemistry, organic chemistry, or biology labs, you probably had a little practice doing titrations, chromatographies, and working with pipettes and microscopes. But in a research lab, you'll be exposed to so many more different types of lab techniques, and it's a great way to gain hands-on experience and to prepare yourself if you want to take any upper division lab classes in the future. Research is also a great way to learn how to problem solve and troubleshoot. A lot of the time, experiments won't give you good results on the first few tries, and you'll have to figure out why before you can move on to the next step. You'll probably have to talk with your principal investigator or any PhD or master students that also work in your lab. You'll also have to search through literature or read through research papers written by people who have done similar experiments as you. Being in a research lab is also a great opportunity to make connections. If you're doing an independent research project, a lot of the time your PI will serve as your mentor, not only in their lab, but also after you graduate. They can connect you to other experts in their fields and offer you advice in general. Because a lot of PIs also teach at the graduate schools here, like the medical and dental schools, you can really take the time to build a relationship with them, and they can even be your future recommendation writer if you do decide to apply to graduate schools. And research could also potentially be something you pursue in the future. If you never had any prior research experience, getting involved in a research lab could help you realize that you really enjoy it and that you want to pursue your future career or part of your future career in research. If you intend to apply to graduate schools, I know that medical schools have combined MD, PhD programs, and dental schools have combined DDS, PhD programs, where you'll earn your doctorate degree along with your PhD in 7 to 8 years, depending on the program. So that's something to definitely consider if you're interested in research. So now moving on to the type.
I wanted to see how long it would take you.
There are 2 main categories, wet labs and dry labs. Wet labs are probably the ones you're more familiar with. Wet labs are where drugs and chemicals are experimented with, and there's a heavy focus on the life sciences, so things like organic chemistry, molecular and cellular biology, and pathology. On the other hand, dry labs are where you would do a lot of applied or computational analysis using computer-generated models. And there's a heavier focus on computation, physics, and engineering. So now moving on to who you should contact. So my biggest advice to you is to not be afraid to reach out to people. You can reach out to your friends who are already in a lab and ask them if there's any open positions. Asking seniors would be a good idea because they'll be graduating and there will most likely be open positions. You can also ask the RAs who live in your building or any of the TAs in your classes. Your TAs usually make their emails available to you on your syllabus, so it's a good idea to reach out to them. You can also reach out to your professors by going to their office hours. You should show your interest in their class and the research that they do. I would ask them if there are any open positions in their lab, maybe after 3 or 4 visits, so it doesn't seem like you're only interested in getting into their lab right away. You could also reach out to professors who don't teach your classes by sending them emails, which I'll get to after this slide. And you could also apply to research programs. So if you click on this link that I have here, it'll take you to this website. Let me pull it up. So this is where you'll find some on and off campus research opportunities. So some on-campus ones include Eureka, Explorations in STEM, and Inducer. And there's also off-campus opportunities. And a lot of these are summer internships. If you're still looking for something to do over the summer, I think any of these would be a great chance to get involved in research. So now we're going to talk about when you should apply. So Hannah will talk about that.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So about when to start applying for research positions, typically positions in research labs open up towards the end of the semester as people graduate at the end of fall or spring. So if you want to begin in the fall, which is what most students do, you should email late July or early August. And if you want to begin in the summer, you should email late March or early April. And if you want to begin in the spring, you should email late November or early December. So for any semester, the sooner the better, but you should give any professor or PI at least a month to respond. And so what to kind of expect when you start to apply. So first is you should aim to send out about 10 to 15 emails, which seems like a lot, but 10 to 15 1 month before the end of the semester. And it's better to send out more emails and get 2 or 3 replies than it is to send out 1 or 2 and get no replies. And second is you should be patient throughout the process because PIs get a lot of emails and they take some time to respond. And sometimes they're also professors and have classes to teach. So it might be difficult to get a hold of them. So you should be patient when emailing them and when they respond to you. And thirdly, you should be persistent. So if the PI that you emailed hasn't responded after 3 to 4 weeks, you should send a follow-up email saying that you're still interested in joining their lab and that you'd still like to meet with them and talk about their work. And another thing is that some PIs may not respond at all, and that's definitely okay. Like everyone has experienced that at some point, so you could try emailing them the following semester if you're still interested, or you could focus on other labs.
And the last thing is to be open-minded. So when you're looking to find a lab to join, you may not get a reply back, or they may not be taking any students during that time, but that doesn't mean that's the only option that you have. There's so many different labs out there, and you can read some of their papers to get a sense of the work that they do, and you'll never know what may interest you. So now I'll be giving a brief overview of my timeline when I was applying to research labs. So I started applying during the spring semester of my freshman year. So from April to June, I reached out to PIs from this list from the psychology department. So the first link will take you to this website. I'm going to pull it up. So it'll take you here, and you would click on list of research opportunities. So here you'll find the name of the contact person and their email address and the type of research that their lab focuses on, their responsibilities as a research assistant, and when there will be openings in their lab. I also used this, which I found on the biology department's website, and it's the second link on my slide. So these three courses, Bio 486, 487, and 489, are all upper division classes where you would work on an approved research project with a mentor. And if you click on any one of these links, it'll take you to a list of faculty in research. So here's a list of research advisors and what their research interests are, and you can click their link to learn more about their research. So just give it a second, it's still loading. So if this is the route that you decide to go on, you would have to register for the course for credit, and I believe it'll count as an upper division course that fulfills one of the graduation requirements. So we'll go back to the slides. Okay, so let me see if I can put this in presentation mode. Okay, so I emailed people from both lists, and I received mixed responses. Some told me that there were no positions available at the time, or I just never got a response. But one lab did get back to me, and it was under the psychology department. So I'll call that lab 1. But before I could officially enter their lab in the fall of my sophomore year as a research assistant, they asked if I could help them with a summer research study. And outside of that, it was also during this time that I talked to a club's e-board member about the lab that she was in. So I'll call that lab 2. And she gave me their contact information and helped me draft my email. But initially, I didn't get a response from her lab. So from June through August, I participated in the summer research study for Lab 1, and I also sent follow-up emails to Lab 2, and I actually received a reply back from them in late August. I went to interview with them and met the people in the lab, and right before summer ended, both labs actually offered me an official research position, but I decided that my interest aligned more with Lab 2, and I joined their lab, which is where I am right now. So moving on how to format an email. So the first thing you should do is introduce yourself, state your name, year, major, and future career goals, especially if they align with the type of lab you're reaching out to. And then you should express interest, explain why you want to join their lab, and you should also talk about one of their research papers that they have published. And it's also good to mention your past research experience if you have any, but if you don't, then definitely say you're open and willing to learn. And you should list your availabilities. Try to set aside at least 3 hours a day for 3 consecutive days. So something like 3 hours on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or 3 hours on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the reason for this is because when you begin an experiment, you usually have to follow up with it the next day. So it's better to be there for consecutive days as opposed to having a 2 or 3 day gap in between. And the reason why you should set aside 3 hours is because experiments take time to prepare and run. And it's hard to learn anything if you're only there for an hour a day. Next, you should ask if the PI would like to meet with you either in person or over Zoom. If they do ask to meet with you in person, definitely dress professionally and ask if you could take a tour of their lab. And lastly, attach a copy of your most updated resume and transcript. A copy of your unofficial transcript is fine as well. And of course, thank them for their time and consideration. So here's an email that I actually sent out to a professor in the biology department. So let me see if I could present this to make it easier to see. So if you read it, I stated my name, year, and a class that I took that taught material related to the type of research that the PI does. I also said that I'm looking to see if there's an opportunity to join their lab in the fall of 2019. And I said that I wanted to go into genetics in the future, which was kind of a stretch at the time. But nonetheless, I attached my resume and transcript and asked if I could if I could set up a time to meet with them. And of course, I thanked them for their time. So here's another email that I sent out to a professor also in the biology department. The first paragraph is similar to the email from before, but in the second paragraph here, I mentioned that I didn't have prior research experience, but I was willing to learn. And I stated specific times I would be available. And I actually got a reply back from them saying that their lab was full at the time, but I could contact them again at the end of the summer or fall. But I didn't end up contacting them again. But it was really great to just get a response back to them from them. So now on how to format a resume. So at the very top of your resume, you should include your name, your contact information. I would put both your school email address and phone number. And then underneath that, put your school, major, any relevant coursework, and expected graduation date. And then next, list your work and leadership experience. If you're a freshman, I would say that you can put high school activities on your resume, but if you're a sophomore, junior, or senior, I would definitely only include things that you did during college. And lastly, I would list any skills that you have or any awards that you received during your time at college. So here is a sample resume template that follows what I listed in the previous slide, and it's the format that I've been using for the past few years. So at this time, maybe some of you are drafting your emails or resumes to send out to labs, and we were thinking of holding a separate event, maybe to read through your email and resume drafts before you send them. This was actually Hannah's idea. So Hannah, if you would like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So Spire is considering hosting a workshop in the coming weeks for anyone who's interested in getting feedback on their email drafts and on it about any like additional advice that we may have on how to find and email professors. So in this event, we'd be giving direct feedback for anyone who would come with drafts written out. And so yeah, if you'd be interested in attending something like that, Jessica will put up the poll so that you can let us know.
So I'm going to launch the poll right now, and if you could respond to it, that'd be great, so we can gauge your interest. So it looks like most people would attend a resume or email workshop, so that's something we'll keep in mind in the future and look out for that event. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll right now. Okay, so now I would like to introduce our student panel. It's featuring 5 undergraduate students currently doing research. As for me, I'm a junior biology major. Where do I do research? I do research at the Stony Brook School of Dental Medicine under the Department of Oral Biology and Pathology. Why did I get into research? I already have clinical experience, shadowing at a general practice, and I also have experience dental assisting at a specialty office. So I wanted to expose myself more to the research side of dentistry. Did I have previous research experience before college? No, I didn't, but I did express interest when I applied and interviewed. What do I do at research? So my lab focuses on a modified version of the drug called curcumin, which was shown to reduce gingival inflammation. So it could potentially be used to treat periodontal disease, which is basically gum disease. And we're currently trying to understand the mechanism by which this drug works. So I help run DNA gels, protein assays, PCRs, and ELISAs. What did I gain or learn from my research lab? So I got exposure to a lot of new lab techniques. Research helped me strengthen my troubleshooting and problem-solving skills. And I made connections to dental students and faculty at the dental school. And I also helped co-author 2 abstracts. And I learned that I prefer the clinical side of dentistry. So that's working with patients.
So for me, I work at Marcus Seeliger's lab in the Pharmacological Sciences Department, and so my project is investigating how different chemotherapy drugs, such as imatinib and dasatinib, which were first created to treat chronic myeloid leukemia. So I'm investigating how these drugs interact with the mutant protein to define factors that influence these drug binding kinetics. And so for why research, I really enjoyed like the creative side of research, like when you're problem solving and you have to figure out new ways to look at a procedure or a specific analysis that you're doing. So yeah, I've definitely enjoyed my experience so far. And so personally, I did have research experience before I came to Stony Brook and joined a lab here. I worked at a retinal biology lab for 2 summers in high school, but that by no means is necessary to get research experience as an undergrad. And there are definitely professors who like to take undergrads and who enjoy training and working with undergrads one-on-one. So definitely don't think that that's a requirement. And so one thing that I've gained or learned from both of my research experiences is that I prefer translational research over basic science research. And I didn't really understand that difference before I came here. So yes, I've definitely realized that. And I've also learned how to manage my time better after joining a lab while also taking college classes. And I've been able to contribute to publications, conferences, and that kind of thing. So it's definitely been a great experience. Oh, and also how to troubleshoot experiments and how to objectively analyze data has definitely been important outcomes of my research experiences so far.
Hi everyone, my name is Trey and I'm a junior biochemistry major. So I've actually been doing research with Dr. Jenny Williams at the Health Sciences Center over near the hospital. And I've actually been doing research with her since I was in high school. So I'm a commuter student, so I actually go to high school pretty close to campus. So I actually really love doing research because as much as I was able to learn about concepts or theories in class, I wasn't really getting the full experience of being able to apply those things to situations where we really don't know a lot of answers. So I really liked research because it allowed me to ask questions that you didn't really have an answer to unless you did the work to find the answer yourself. So I had research experience with this current lab, but it was my first lab ever. So I've been with my PI since I was actually a sophomore in high school. And so that's almost like 6 years running where I've had experience with this lab. And I do research on mainly colon cancer and also specifically colon cancer racial health disparity and what we can do to mitigate and explore the biochemical and biomechanisms behind that kind of field. So we work with a lot of chemotherapeutic drugs, also some micronutrient and diet-based supplementation studies. So that's what we do in our lab. The best things that I was able to learn from research was definitely being on top of organization and time management. Those two are super important skills that I had before, but I was able to really apply them and practice them through my research experience. But another really important thing was being able to collaborate with others, because we all have had the experience of doing like group projects and things like that, but there's really nothing that compares to like collaborating with another group that's, like halfway across the country, or collaborating with you like around the world, like, or with all these really really impressive professors or PIs that are doing really high level work. So you get to learn so much just being in their presence, and I think that was one of the best things that I was able to learn. Also, just logistical things about how to do techniques like that are commonplace in not only cancer labs but a lot of biochemistry labs, including Western blot, PCR, techniques that you can probably hear about if you look for research. But my biggest gain from doing research was the ability to have independence and also be able to just think about problems critically and being able to analyze information that I was able to develop from my own experimental designs. And I think that was a really important skill that I was able to gain.
Okay, hi guys. So my name is Farah. I'm a sophomore double majoring in psychology and economics. So currently I am doing research at the Mind Body Clinical Research Center. So this lab is located in South Campus, and it's actually part of Stony Brook School of Medicine's Department of Psychiatry. So what do I do at research? A lot of my research is based around design or making consent forms for approval by the IRB. I've also been screening participants over the phone and via a video call for a CBTI study. So CBTI is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So this study has been centered around administering CBTI to patients that have had bariatric surgery within the past 3 years, as they've been shown to have signs of sleep difficulties and insomnia. So in addition to that, I've also been leading portions of a smart Parkinson's therapy. So this therapy takes place about once a week. And basically we have Parkinson's patients and their caregivers attend over a video call. And I usually help guide relaxation techniques. And that's really what smart therapy is all about, like relaxation, stress relief, things like that. And I've also recently started writing about mental health of first responders, especially now due to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of stress regarding first responders, but also in addition, I've also been talking about other like terrorist attacks, things like that, that have caused significant mental stress to first responders. So why research? So research makes me feel like I'm being a useful member of society. And what I mean by that is that you can learn a lot of things in the classroom. I'm sure some of you might have taken Orgo or Bio, and there's a lot of information thrown at us. And we have to learn it for tests and midterms and finals and things like that. But how much of it can we really apply in real life? So after taking so many psychology classes and learning about different psychological phenomenons and things like that, I wanted to get some hands-on exposure to it. And I feel like being able to do hands-on exposure helps you kind of solidify the knowledge that you learn in the classroom and helps you develop a unique skill set, have knowledge that you'll kind of remember for life. So I really like that aspect of it. So did I have previous research experience? Yes. So my previous research experience, I feel like it's kind of similar to Shrey's, I feel like, but I previously did research at the Stony Brook Lipid Cancer Laboratory, which is also in the Health Science Center. So here I also did research regarding colon cancer. And so I also had exposure to similar techniques like Western blots, PCRs, things like that. And I also did research at the Stony Brook Center for Biotechnology, where I designed a CRISPR system, and then I investigated symptoms of ALS. And finally, what did I gain / learn? So a big thing that I gained from doing psychology and behavioral science research was interpersonal skills. I like the idea that I can interact with participants, get consent from them, talk to them, and of course, communicate with my PIs, other RAs. And of course, I'm learning about how the IRB approval process works, how therapists and clinicians deliver evidence-based treatments. I'm developing scientific writing skills and of course, networking and professional development regarding resume building, CV, things like that. So yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Mega. I am a freshman biomedical engineering major. I do research with Dr. Maria Mrfovich in the Chemical and Molecular Engineering Department here at Stony Brook. And the reason I decided to do research, especially in freshman year, was because I was learning all these really new concepts, especially in physics. And they were concepts that I'd never seen before, and there were concepts that were really interesting to me, like flow and modulus, and basically how fluids move. And I thought it would be really cool to see how these concepts could be applied to like a practical setting. It's a lot like what everybody else has been saying, but it's like a very good reason to go into research. And I do have some research experience. I worked in a lab at high school. I did the Garcia Summer High School program, which is part of like the Garcia Center, which is also part of the Chemical and Molecular Engineering Department, kind of. And I also worked with Dr. Filovich over there. So that's how I got a contact here and started to do research so early in my college career. And I did the research I did over, that was like last summer or 2 summers ago, had to do more with cells. So I was seeing how different mechanical and chemical effects could cause cells to differentiate at different rates and into different types of cells. Now I decided to go into more engineering, more physicsy kind of research because I wanted to get like some more experience in that sector over like biology, which I had gotten previously. And right now I'm working on testing different biocompatible gels that can be for applications to be inserted into aneurysms to like clot up an aneurysm to prevent it from spreading and becoming worse and harming the individual further. And it's really preliminary research, like it's a lot of testing different materials for strain and how the material reacts under pressure. It's called rheometry. It's a lot of testing with a single device, but you have to get like a really large data sample in order to go on with the research. And I think it's really cool that I'm getting involved with this project like at the beginning stages, so that I could see how over time, and this is something that I'm planning to stick with for the foreseeable future. I think it's really interesting to see how the project's going to evolve from like the really fundamental things I'm doing now to what it could be like when I graduate. And also, right, what I gained and learned, it has to do a lot more with communication and working independently. Yeah, as I stated before, I had a lot of experience in high school with labs, and that was very guided. So there was always someone looking over your shoulder there, and that's kind of the feeling you get in a lot of lab classes we have. It's like there's always a TA that will answer every question and kind of tell you what to do in some cases. So this is a lot of, this is what I want you to do, and do it. And you just go out and do it. And I think it's like, the freedom's also liberating, but it's also kind of stifling at the same time. And you have to learn how to get the confidence to actually go out and do that. And I think that's a really cool tool to learn, especially like going forward and like transitioning, at least for me, from high school to college and then to the professional world. I think that's a really interesting and fundamental skill to learn.
Okay, so At this time, we'll take any questions, so feel free to unmute or type your questions in the chat. I think there's already some questions in the chat. Or you guys can type right now if you would like to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know you guys most of you guys, or almost all of you guys, have experience with Stony Brook Labs. What if you're trying to get a research somewhere else other than the school that you're attending? Do you still use the same methods, or like how do you reach out to PIs or professors that have research?
So I think that the main thing would be focusing on a topic that you're interested in. And so once you find a general topic, you can look into other universities that have professors that study a similar topic, and you can find professors' names, and pretty much a similar process to what you would do if you were contacting a professor at Stony Brook, except you would be looking outside of Stony Brook. And also there are programs such as REUs or other external opportunities for undergrads to do research outside of their campus, their undergrad university. And they sometimes provide funding for you for travel support and housing support. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of opportunities out there to get research outside of your home campus. And it's a similar process, and there are also some programs that you can apply to.
And to add on to that, a lot of universities make their websites available to any student, so you don't have to go to their school. And I'm pretty sure you'll be able to access a list of faculty who do research, and I'm pretty sure their emails will also be on the website for that school. So you could still reach out regardless whether you're a student at that school or not. And I'm pretty sure they'll be glad to have you if you're willing to put in the effort and you're willing to learn.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask also, how long is the minimum, because I'm a senior now? Well, I'm gonna be a senior, so I wanted to know what's the minimum research experience or time you can have before you're applying to grad school?
So I think that it would depend on what kind of graduate school you were looking to apply to, and also like how research focused your program would be. And I think that definitely a good amount could be like starting out this summer or during the semester. And yeah, I think it definitely depends on your situation and what programs you're looking to apply to.
Okay, thank you.
We can talk further if you're interested in coming to the follow-up workshop.
Will do for sure. Thanks.
So I'm going to read some questions off of the chat, and if anyone on the panel would like to answer, please feel free to do so. So Anna asks, what do you recommend doing because of COVID? Every lab has limited spots or only take those who already have, I'm assuming, research experience.
So I guess
I think, I was just gonna say that at the moment, like there are some programs on campus that were mentioned in the workshop, like, Inducer, Eureka, like, things like that, that they actually help you find, like help connect you to, professors or PIs. So I know from my personal experience on what I see from a day-to-day basis that there are students still getting into labs like right now. And they usually are able to do that through some of these programs. So that might be one way that you can kind of circumvent that like barrier of getting like the COVID kind of response from a lot of PIs. Is if you maybe go through some of these programs, that might be a good place for you to start looking.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend what Trey said also. And also like what Jessica showed before, on the psychology website, they do have a list of PIs and labs with availabilities for RAs, as well as on the biology department website, I believe. So if you are interested in a particular field of research, I would suggest going to their department website and seeing if they have a similar document of research availabilities, and you might be able to find something there.
So another question from the chat, Nabil asks, do you have to register for Bio 486, 487, 488 if one of the faculty advisors for those classes accepts you into their lab? So you could register if you would like to get it, if you would like to take that for credit, if you would like to do research for credit, but you don't have to. You could just do research voluntarily and not for credit, but it's up to you. But it's something that you can definitely talk to those advisors about. But if you would like to register, you would need to have like a concrete project in mind in order to fulfill it. Matt asked, what type of questions or conversations can you expect to have when being interviewed by a PI?
So I can speak a little bit on this. So when I first met with my PI, she was very interested in how, like, examples of problem solving in the past. Also, she was interested in like how I work with other people and how I work with like getting and giving constructive criticism as well. So those were some of the things that we touched base on. And I just basically was able to describe my previous experiences in, some extracurricular activities that I did where that involved a lot of collaboration with different teams or things like that. And just showing those kind of skills, or those are the types of questions that she asked me. A lot of the PIs don't necessarily test you on like, do you know like this technique or whatever. That's something that you're going to learn by joining the lab, right? So you should know a little bit about some techniques, about like maybe by name or something like that and what they do, but you shouldn't be expecting to like know every single detail about that. One big thing though is you should be familiar with the type of research that the lab actually does. So maybe going through some of like the most recent papers that PI put out would help align you to the focus of the lab, and you can talk a lot about that content and why you're interested in that a lot. So that's something that you can think about.
And to add on to what Trey said, during my interview for the lab that I'm currently in, I was asked what I know about their research lab. So definitely read up on some of their papers or any recent research that they did, because it's a great talking point and it shows a lot of interest and that you've done research about them before coming to interview. So Melanie asked, how do I find their publications or their website? I have trouble navigating their page. So if you just type in the name of the PI into Google, I'm pretty sure it should be able to find them, because they should have a lot of publications, and you should be able to find them if you just type them into Google. Or you could type their name and then just put like Stony Brook at the end. It should be specific enough to find them. Ryan asks, can you apply to labs that are perhaps not about topics that your major is about? For example, applying to psychology or engineering labs if you are a biology or biochemistry major.
Yeah, so I'm a biomedical engineering major and I'm in a chemical engineering lab. I know it's not very different, but I feel like if you have like some overlap, I feel like you would have a good background. Like if you're a bio or a biochemistry major, if you're going for engineering, maybe not mechanical engineering, but maybe biomedical or chemical. I wouldn't be able to speak to how much of a degree like they would the PI would like actually want you like that experience from the major. Like if you did something like very, very different, it might be like a kind of a cool talking point. Like I'm not at all like I'm a psychology major and I'm looking at this engineering lab and I think I'll bring a really cool perspective. If you could spin it that way, that would be like a really interesting talking point in your interview or in your emails too. So that's just something to think about.
So the next question, Annie asked, what's the learning curve like? So I can speak on that. So when I first joined my research lab, I had like no idea what was going on because everything was like so complicated. It was just such complex science. But I took the time to go find some of the papers that the lab has published, and I read up on it, and it gave me like a little bit more background of what to expect and what their future projects may be geared towards. And I also asked like a lot of questions because I work alongside a PhD student and it's her fourth year now. And she knows a lot about the lab that we're in. And I always direct my question towards her if my PI is ever too busy to answer them. And PhD students or master students are very open to answering any questions. So it's you can always reach out to them, whether it be email, text, or just like going in there in person to ask them questions.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in the learning phase in my lab too, because I joined like maybe like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, kind of something like that. And basically I follow around the PhD student with a notebook and I write down everything that comes to mind. So that's basically like take very good notes and just review those notes. And I like making lists, like ordered lists and recipes because I work in like kind of a chemistry-ish environment. So writing down everything and whatever question that pops into your mind, just ask it, and you'll just whatever your PhD student or your PI will say, that's just going to enhance your understanding of the topic. So just tons and tons of questions.
So the next question, Anna asked, I'm a rising senior with 0 lab experience, and I want to be involved in research as much as possible. What can you recommend? I tried applying to REUS, which is a research program, but I'm not hopeful. And from what I understand with Eureka, they are doing research themselves, but I'm scared to jump into that. So I just prefer being a research assistant.
So for programs, especially like Eureka, like they emphasize being able to design your experiment independently, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to learn everything totally by yourself, right? Once you get into a lab, the PI will generally set you up with either experienced members in the lab that are already there so that you can at least learn the possible techniques that are, and you can start learning about what kinds of experiments are being done in that field, right? For example, in my field of colon cancer and chemotherapeutics, there's a very standard like methodology for testing a new drug. And there's a lot of papers out there that describe the thought process and the design premises of the experiment. Once you get that kind of exposure, you start to get ideas of what you want to look for in that particular field. So a big thing is you shouldn't be afraid of doing independent research or designing an experiment independently, because at the end of the day, the PI that's there in your lab is meant to help you and guide you in that sense. And you're also not the only one in the lab, right? So you can also bounce questions and ideas off of other people. So I think, in my opinion, at first I was very scared of, my PI told me I should just come up with a project like 2 days into me being in the lab. And that was very overwhelming for me. But I realized that when she told me to do that, it was really more about communicating with others and not just taking that burden completely by yourself. So I wouldn't necessarily be apprehensive about, jumping into a program where they emphasize independent experimental design. But, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Okay, so the next question is, do I need to have research experience if I already have clinical experience? So I'm assuming this is for like graduate school, like medical school or dental school. So research isn't a requirement, but it's definitely good to have because you get to learn so much about how science is applied in the real world. But if you're not interested in research, you don't have to do it. You could focus on your other interests. But if you do get the opportunity and being in such a research-oriented school like Stony Brook, I think it'd be good just to have some experience before you apply. So Savannah asked, I was wondering if you could email this presentation because I had a class and missed the first half. So this presentation will be on our YouTube channel. If you just search up Spire, it should be there. And I can send a link to these slides in a few minutes. And for Anna, is it okay if we email you with questions? Yes, it is. So on the next slide, I have Spire's contact information. So you can DM us, email us if you have any questions after tonight, and we'll be sure to get back to you with that. So if there's no more questions, thank you all for coming. If you do have any leftover questions, I could stay a few more minutes and you can ask them. But here are my slides if you want a copy of them.
I think someone asked, how do you join Spire? So
Oh,
maybe Board wants to talk about it. So.
Yeah, so Spire has 2 types of applications. One is for being a writer, that is based on every semester, and the other is to be on the journal working staff. So the writer application goes out a few weeks before the start of each semester. So for the current semester, that application cycle is already over, and it will reopen in the later parts of summer. And I would advise you to, if you follow us on our Instagram or even look at our website, you'll be able to see updates on when that application is open. You can also apply for a staff position that contributes to the journal, either editorial, layout, or cabinet. And those applications typically open up before the fall semester starts. But this semester, what we've done is, if you want to be involved in Spire right now, in addition to attending the workshops that we hold, we actually have our weekly meeting for staff that anyone is allowed to come to see how we work on the journal, to see if the club is right for you. If you want to be involved more and ask questions during those meetings, you're totally open and welcome to do that. And more information about that can, again, be found on our website, or you can even email us for more information about how to be more involved with us this semester without being an applicant.
if anyone has any more questions, we could still take them.
Hi. Is this some sort of mailing list where you can get your emails like every week?
Yeah, we do have a mailing list. So Steph, do you want to just describe that process?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna hop in and say, we do have a mailing list. You can join if you want to just drop your email in the chat. We can add you to that. We usually have in in that mailing list, we send out a newsletter with articles we publish on our website and any dates for upcoming workshops and events. So if you want to be on that, you can definitely do so. Just drop your email in the chat.